All right, what's up, Joe 200? It is Sunday, September 29th, 2024. Okay, and so we are going to be continuing and connecting the biology of aging to common diseases that the world has to deal with, and really our country, developed countries, really have to deal with. And so we're going to be focusing in on diabetes today, and then how diabetes is a risk factor for vascular disease, because ultimately it's the all the glucose, which is sugar, all the sugar that is inside the bloodstream that is never really put away and used, and all the really severe consequences that happen with that. So that's where we're headed today. All right, another beautiful day, and hopefully you guys had a great weekend. Just it's been a great USC football weekend. Okay, so we won handily against Wisconsin. Okay, which is awesome. And again, kudos to everybody on the team, the coaching staff, all the support staff. Great job. And here it is Sunday, and we got some NFL on for you guys that are football fans. And yeah, the Saints kind of blew it in the end. That's Julie's and everybody's a Saint fan. I'm a Saint fan. Julie's a Saint fan. Wait a minute, guys, look who it is. It's a drive-by. It's Desi. Desi, what are you doing, buddy? This is the boy dog, color-coded with a blue collar. Go by, Desi. All right, he's gonna go do something really important. Um, and then we have the girl dog, Lucy, somewhere else. But yeah, USC football this weekend. Sam Darnold is killing it with the Vikings. Okay, 4-0, and not only 4-0, but just annihilating other teams. So I'm super stoked for Sam Darnold. He actually is a South Orange County guy. All right, super cool. And so we followed him his whole career. Took GERO 200. All right. And aced it. So, and then we have Caleb Williams. All right, who, I know you're Ram fans, but it's good to see Caleb beat up on the Rams. Okay, all right. So where are we here? So we're going to go find our module in diabetes. We can either go through this table of contents, or we can go through the visual table of contents. Let's do it through the visual table of contents because it's fun. Remember, we did the biology of aging, all these things that put us at risk, okay, for aging and disease. We kind of tapped into growth factors in cancer. So remember with that we were talking about um, oncogenes, okay, and too much growth factors, okay, with overnutrition is a big part of it, okay. So we're going to tap into that with diabetes and the overnutrition part. And then we also heard about tumor suppressor genes in here as well. You guys did, by the way, I've done a great job on your CTs. We're reading them, and we're really loving how well you're doing on that, okay. All right, awesome. Okay, here we are. All right. So, in our overview, we're gonna go through diabetes, the different types of diabetes. We kind of have an old slide deck. I think it's time to get rid of it. Okay. But in the meantime, I can kind of walk you through it simply and explain the different types of diabetes. What are the causes and symptoms? Okay. What you can do to prevent getting this disease. Okay. Why has this become a disease of affluence? Okay. Well, when I say that, why is it that developed countries have a big issue with it? And not all, okay? Of course, it is the people of the lower socioeconomic parts of our country that are super high at risk of diabetes. And it has a lot to do with food deserts and problems in terms of access to medicine, okay? What can we do for prevention, and what can we do for treatment? So we're going to get into that, all right? Awesome. So as always, my video is going to go right in here. And then we're kind of connecting this learning module to a part of life, okay, and that is we're curious, okay, in terms of how long we're going to live, and a readout of risk for diabetes is your body mass index. And so that's kind of what we get into right in here, okay? So we can ask you to kind of think about body mass index. In here we give a definition of how BMI is calculated, how it's not fair. It doesn't consider the fact that your weight, okay, and your height, okay. So because we see right over here, you calculate it, you divide the weight by the height, okay, but you can be, have a lot of weight because you have huge muscles and huge bones, etc. Okay, like these two guys. Okay, LeBron and Patrick. Okay, so it's not that accurate in that sense, but it is a metric that is used. Okay, and sadly it's used by health insurance companies. Okay, to assess your risk. Okay, and so then that's what is used then to determine what kind of premium you have to pay and what your monthly bill would be to have the insurance. Okay, so what we're gonna have you do is you go in here and calculate your BMI by clicking right on there. Okay, I went ahead and did mine. I'm around 6 feet tall, 174 pounds. I'm 23.6 BMI. Okay, so I guess I'm okay. Who knows? All right, but that's the range that they show right there. Okay, and down here, if you're outside the range, they give you some guidelines in terms of maintaining a healthy weight and strategies, for example, of increasing your physical activity and having a better diet. And that is, the root of our problem in our societies. Look at developed countries, they're oftentimes more agricultural, okay? So they have a lot of very exercise-based, purposeful work, okay, that burns a lot of calories, keeps them fit, okay? And then also they have less access to fast food, so they're more likely to eat farm to table, okay? And so as a result, these kinds of diseases will be lower in these countries than they are in ours, okay? So this is, kind of a problem that we have in terms of modernization of the world. Alrighty, so down here we have a couple of graphics. Okay, so we in this particular example, you're able to see what group that you are part of. Are you a male? Are you a female? Okay, what is your ethnicity? Okay, and then we look at the BMIs and the comorbid. These are basically, what diseases are associated with these, with elevated BMIs for each of these populations. Okay, that's what comorbid means. It means it's correlated with the BMI, these diseases. Okay, alrighty, very cool. This right here is a place you can go into to look at even more. So if I click in here and we go into this, so it's a really cool article that it gets into this issue where we got that graphic. Very short, you see, but about ethnic differences. Okay, all right. So I'm just going to go backwards in my browser and get back into Brightspace where we were at. Okay, awesome. Okay, so what you then do is you're going to do your BMI, like I said, and then we wanted you to have fun. And down here at the very bottom, calculate your lifespan, okay? And so that's what the discussion is all about here. So here's another actually lifespan calculator that is far better than the one that is right here because it's fun to play because you actually can put a lot of your lifestyle factors into this, okay? Alrighty. All right, I was born in 1956, okay? And you can compare the national average for people that are 56 versus people that are your age. Okay, awesome. So that's the discussion, just tapping into this concept of diabetes. Now, I do want to talk right here about our developed country issue, and that is in your discussion. We do have this obesity epidemic in our country, so the numbers are astronomical. We're projected to have by 2050, 60% of our country is going to be pre-diabetic associated with obesity, which is mind-boggling. Why do we have obesity? What is it all about? Okay, it's because you look at our ancestors for millions and millions of years, we never knew where the next meal was coming from. So we're designed, okay, to seek out the food that has the highest caloric intake, okay? So yeah, fats and sweets, because, back in caveman days, which, was most of our ancestral lives, you had to get, the best food, okay? And then you would just grind, okay? And gorge yourself, okay? And then you might go 3-4 days with nothing. So you would feast and then you would fast, okay? You feast and then you would fast, okay? That's what we were designed for. And when you were fasting, you would then burn, okay, all of the calories that you stored as fat, right? But our problem now is that we don't follow these natural evolutionary ways of living as human beings. We have unlimited access to unlimited food, and instead of, you know, basically your brain is always saying, hey, look at all that food, you got to eat it all because you might not see a meal in a day or two or three. Now you have to say, oh, I can't eat that much today, you know, it's not healthy, even though your brain is saying, eat it all, eat it all, eat it all. That's the real trouble, okay? And then what happens when you're fasting, like our caveman, okay, then you release this hormone called growth hormone that goes down and it just burns all the fat. So it was this natural cycle, okay? When you have a lot of food, remember back in the previous sections of class, we released the IGF-1, and then that would pack away all the nutrients, okay? So you pack it away, okay, through the IGF-1, and then you burn it, IGF-1 and insulin, and then when there's no food around, you burn it through growth hormone, stress hormone, cortisol, and also through adrenaline. You just, you're out there and you burn. So it's this cycle of, all right, feasting and fasting, okay, storing and burning. All right, but if you're storing all the time because you have unlimited food, what happens then is the insulin and the IGF-1, they're so high all the time because you're eating all the time, along with growing fat cells and the release of fat into the blood. What happens is suddenly now when you go and you try and lose weight, okay, you go on a little fast and you start exercising, you have far less growth hormones, so it's really hard to burn fat. That's the dilemma. All right, so that's long-winded background on the discussion, but I think it was super important. Have fun with that discussion, guys. Okay, all right, let's go into this right here. All righty. So this kind of describes what's going on in terms of diabetes, okay? This is a simple overview. Again, this is old, but it's just a way to kind of give you a quick overview of what's going on in terms of the different types of diabetes, all right? So I'm just gonna click on this guy and guide through, okay? It's kind of diabetes 101, very simple. So when we eat, okay, like I said, glucose enters our bloodstream, and what's gonna happen, this is our main source of energy. It's like gasoline from moving a car. We use glucose that is burned from sugars, okay? All kinds of sugars. You know, pasta is sugars. It's just sugars that's all connected. Rice is sugar, like that. Potato is sugar, okay? Croissants have a lot of good icing and stuff like that. That's sugar too, all right? So we use that for energy. But right when you have a meal, there's a limited use of it, and then you're just gonna, like I said, you're gonna store it because later on, when's the next meal coming? Okay, so what we do is we have pancreas right here, right, and the pancreas is sitting, right here, close to your kidneys and everything else. And what it does is it has direct access to your GI system, and the second that sugar gets into the blood, the pancreas beta cells start releasing a bunch of insulin. That's what the I is. Insulin gets released, it then goes to your muscle, to your fat, to your liver, everywhere else. It says, here comes the glucose. And it's like a key fitting into a lock, opens it up, and then the cells just vacuum cleaner, like suck all the glucose out of the blood and then shuts down. Cool. So you store it for later. All right. So there's the glucose, and that's the key fitting into the lock, putting the glucose inside the cell. That's the way we're designed, okay? Could be your liver, could be your muscle, could be your brain, every cell in the body, all right? Now, when we look at a condition where we're not able to clear the glucose that we've eaten, okay? And so now the glucose is just chock full in your blood. There's all kinds of problems with that. The immune system looks at it like, whoa, that's not normal, and it goes nuts, okay, all that glucose, okay? Bacteria actually are heavily coated in glucose. That's just the way they are. So the immune system starts like, is that bacteria or is that glucose? It kind of flips out, all right? Why do we have high blood glucose or hyperglycemia? Well, you can have a situation where you're not producing enough insulin, all right? So you have this loaded glucose, but not enough insulin. In fact, you can have a situation where you produce no insulin, and that is called a juvenile onset type 1 diabetes, and it's because of this rare autoimmune disease where the immune system inappropriately destroys the pancreas, that part of the pancreas that releases insulin, and you're just screwed. So now the only way you can survive is to inject insulin, okay? Thank God we figured that out, all right? Another one is called type 2 diabetes, and that's where remember the lock with the key? Suddenly the lock doesn't work so well. So in comes insulin and it's not working. That's an insensitivity to the action of insulin. That's type 2 diabetes. What causes that? Obesity causes that, okay? So when you have a lot of fat, the receptor that recognizes insulin doesn't work as well. When you have a lot of inflammation, okay, when you have a lot of blood glucose, the immune system flips out and has inflammation. When you have obesity, especially right here in your viscera, um, there's so much death in that when you're obese, that the immune system is inflamed all the time. All that screws you in terms of being able to put glucose in the cell. All righty. Lastly, as indicated right here, the liver is a storehouse. Okay, and when your cells, okay, are not not able to suck the glucose in because the receptors aren't working, a message is sent to the liver and says, hey, where's the glucose? Even though there's a ton of glucose. And the liver says, oh, I know what to do. I'll release more. So now your blood glucose gets even higher and higher. All right. That's the problem. Okay. So there are drugs that you can take to reduce that. So if you have a family member or friend that has diabetes, they might take metformin, and that keeps the liver from releasing glucose. Okay. So what are you going to see in all types of glucose when you have this high hyper, like me, okay, glycemia? That's the level of blood glucose. Okay. First of all, you're thirsty all the time. Why are you thirsty all the time? Because if you take some sugar, put it into some water and stir it up, what happens? It's gone. It's magical. It's still in there, isn't it? Okay. So what happens is the sugar grabs water, encircles itself with water, and everywhere sugar goes, there's like a sphere of water that has it. Okay. That is kind of cloaking it. All right. That's the basics of our bodies. We're 98% water, okay? So that sugar goes into your kidneys, and guess what do? You pee it out, all right? Remember I said the sugar is encircled by water, so it's peeing out all your water, and that's why you're so thirsty all the time, all right? You're tired, okay, why? Because remember, your receptors are not recognizing the insulin, so the glucose is not getting into your body, so there's fatigue into your cells, or like I said, the type 1, you don't have enough insulin. Bottom line, you're not getting sugar into the cells, which is the gasoline to go, all right? Because of how high glucose, the hyperglycemia messes with your blood vessels, it screws up the blood delivery to the eye. You get blurry vision. You get diabetic eye disease. You can go blind. Okay, it screws with the delivery of blood vessels to especially really far away places like your lower legs and your feet. And as a result, you can't deliver the immune system to heal cuts and wounds. Okay, it inhibits the immune system, so you have all this weight, these infections. The end stage, okay, you lose weight because you're not getting enough in, okay, nausea and vomiting. All right, awesome, okay. It can have these complications. We have a couple of videos on that. Anywhere blood is supposed to go, it's not going when you have diabetes, okay? It's just like candy coating pipes, and then fat gets in there, okay? It contributes to development of cholesterol plaques when you're a diabetic. And so the blood vessels to the eye don't work and people go blind. The blood vessels to the kidneys don't work and people will actually lose total kidney function and have to go on dialysis, which is a way, because your kidneys are cleaning your blood 24 hours a day, all right? So then if your kidneys fail, then you got to go into a machine, you hook it up through IV and drain the blood, clean it and put it back in. It's really, really hard to do, okay? Or you have to have a kidney transplant, all right? The blood vessels to the nerves, okay, get damaged, and so you get what's called neuropathy or nerve damage. In the end, when the blood is not flowing down, especially really far away places like your feet, okay, you start getting amputations because it gets necrotic, all right? Heart attack and stroke, blood vessels don't go to the brain, blood vessels don't go as well to the heart, the brain dies off or the tissue or the heart muscle dies off, and that's what you get, all right? Awesome. Like I said, two types. Type 1, this happens in young people, okay? And it is because the special cells in the pancreas that are supposed to produce insulin in response to blood glucose going up during a meal, they die off, okay? So this means you have to do insulin injections in these people, okay? Type 2, okay? End stage, the pancreas begins to die off, because what happens is it's putting out so much insulin, but it cannot produce enough insulin to overcome the receptors that are not working anymore, and then it begins to fail. All right. So the best thing you can do in type 2 is catch it early, and then modify your lifestyle. Okay. All right. So these are the stats. Okay. For a type 1, again, it's juvenile onset. Okay. 1 in 20 people have this. There was actually, it's thought to be, because autoimmune diseases are thought to be related, at least in part, to viral infections, okay, consequent. And so there was an uptick actually in type 1 cases during the pandemic, okay, and it's still happening right now. It's just kind of random in terms of who's going to get it, and it can be genetic susceptibility. All right, so these people always need insulin. What's unique about them is they tend to have weight loss, rapid weight loss. Okay, all right, so we can see right here. Weight loss, loss of energy, thirsty. Why? Because you're peeing out all the water with the glucose that's not being taken up by cells. Frequent urination, okay? And then right here, what happens, this is a really big emergency condition. We do this, remember, when we fast, sometimes we do the ketogenic diet, okay? That's where you don't eat any sugar for a while, okay? These poor individuals cannot use any sugar. They can only use fat, all right? And the livers convert fat into what are called ketones that are then used by your brain and your heart and your muscles, okay? It's supposed to be a short-term thing. The ketones really drop the pH of your blood, making it super acidic, and it can be life-threatening, all right? All righty, so that's that right there, all right? So, what are we gonna do? Manage it, okay? People need to know what causes it, people know who's at risk and when it happens, okay? You got to have better choices of diet, physical activity. You're going to inject insulin. You're going to constantly have to monitor glucose. It used to be a struggle. You used to have to do a pinprick and do that all throughout the day to sample blood glucose and make sure that you had your insulin that you would inject. Okay, but now there are patches you can put on your arm that they're able to monitor blood glucose by looking at changes in the skin glucose. Okay, and that was life-changing for these people. Still having to do insulin injections, okay? This is, again, the wasting away that happens when you have no fuel, okay? Because there's no insulin being treated. This is a long time ago. Once this disease is figured out, then we were able to make insulin for people to take, and this is the same child after going on insulin therapy, all right? Old school. Type 2, okay, this is the majority of people. 90% of diabetics are type 2. This happens later in life, okay, over the age of 40, okay. It's starting to creep into younger ages because we have childhood obesity in our country, okay, in, again, these developed countries with excessive food and poor diet. All right, who's more likely to get this? This is the public health part, the epidemiology. If you're overweight, okay, higher risk in Black and Hispanic populations, and part of it has to do with being of lower socioeconomic, if we make a big generalization, okay, and limited access to good nutrition and good health care, all right? There is a genetic component to this, genetic risk. So if you have a history of diabetes in your family, you have to be very careful. Same old, okay? You're peeing out all of your glucose. It brings the water with you, so you're super thirsty. You're not absorbing the glucose, okay, because your insulin receptors don't work. You're tired. You have messed up vision because the blood vessels are going, okay? Infections because the blood vessels are going down in your legs, on and on, okay? People don't realize they have it until it's too late, all right? So what do we need? We need education, okay, which is missing in our lower socioeconomic groups. We need better eating, which is missing in our lower socioeconomic groups, okay? Once you are diagnosed, we have to have access to good glucose monitoring. Thank God for these new patch systems, okay? And then we gotta have a whole approach that is really not based on we're going to give you a pill, give you a shot, whatever that kind of approach is, which is traditional medicine. We need to have the lifestyle medicine component where we're going to get people to eat better and have physical activity. All right, awesome. Who's at risk, okay, for getting this later in life diabetes? it's a sedentary lifestyle. Look at our ancestors, man. Our ancestors, we were charging it. We had to just roam the Santa Monica Mountains, trying to find a meal every single day. Okay, that's not the story now. How about if we go down to other countries? Okay, developing countries, they have to work. They're still charging it. Okay, that's this kind of this disconnect that you look at in terms of wealthy countries versus more developing countries. Okay, family history, there's a genetic predisposition. Okay, um, being overweight. Okay, you're fat. Okay, if you especially right here in the tummy, called visceral fat. It is inflammatory, and when you have this heightened immune action that is gobbling up all the fat all the time down there, because the fat cells fall apart, is what it is. Then that inflammation feeds back to every insulin receptor in your body and kind of screws with it. All right, so this is no good, no good. All right, so this is why you have to manage this. Being overweight is also a risk factor for getting gestational diabetes. Okay, all right, and then gestational diabetes. 50% of people that get gestational diabetes end up getting type 2 diabetes. Okay, gestational diabetes has to do with the hormones that are released specifically by the placenta, which is the nest, okay, that the baby is growing within. The hormones in there can mess with the sensitivity of insulin receptors as well. Sadly, there can be long-term effects. Okay, so don't be overweight. Don't have PCOS. Okay, and then that will really lower your risk of gestational diabetes, right? And then we have age, okay, and like I said, there's ethnic background, all right? This is showing this shift in terms of lifestyle in our country, going from 1994, okay, to 2010 right here, okay? So we're looking right here, obesity prevalence in adults, okay? Diabetes prevalence in adults. And what do we see here, guys? We see kind of a match between the two, okay? People are less obese, okay? Again, we're making huge generalizations. In these states, and they have higher, lower levels of diabetes. People are more obese in these states, and they have higher incidence of diabetes. All right, that's what public health officials do. And these numbers are old, so we're not even going to look at them. They've only gotten worse. Okay, and we'll show you that later. Okay, it's a huge burden. Okay, because anywhere the blood vessel goes, then it connects that type of cause of death. For example, vascular disease that affects your likelihood of having a stroke, a heart attack, kidney failure, blindness, on and on and on. Okay, all right. Big giant burden. Okay, prediabetes means that you're becoming more insensitive to the action of insulin. Okay, you're and how are we going to know that? Well, you just go to the doctor and they can do a glucose sensitivity test. Okay, and basically what happens is we'll look at your fasting blood glucose, and hey, that's getting a little high. Okay, and then we give you a little. They have a test where they give you a little cup of water, and then 2 hours later we look at your insulin, and you say and you go, well, that's weird. Your insulin's a little high. You should have cleared all the glucose and insulin should be gone. And the other one is you do what's called, we're looking at the level of glucose that's just sitting in your blood, and it coats the hemoglobin that's in our red blood cells that carries oxygen around. And you get what's called an HbA1c test. And that's an indicator. So that's how we know you're on your way. We can nip it in the bud and get you exercising and dieting. All right. Alrighty, like that I'm talking about here. Prevention, that is key. We don't want to spend all our money in medicine, okay? We want the A1C to be down. They even say 6.5%. That means we can gather up all of your red blood cells, okay? Not all of them. We'll just take a blood test, okay? And look at those red blood cells and look at that hemoglobin protein in there. And if 7% of it is candy coated, you got a problem, all right? So we want to get it down to 3% maybe, okay? Blood pressure is going to go up, okay? Because what happens to a pipe, a flexible pipe, a rubber pipe, if you coat it with hard candy, okay? It's the simplest way to look at it, okay? You coat it with hard candy and then hard fat, okay? It goes like this and blood pressure goes up, all right? So we got to manage it. We're going to manage our cholesterol. We're going to manage our diabetes. stop smoking, okay, on and on and on. Just be, sorry about that, just, healthy lifestyle choices is key, all right? Alrighty, so yeah, I think that's about it for this slide deck, all right? And again, like I said, it's a little old, but it really still does work. Okay, all right, where are we at now, okay? This right here looks like the global issues. And this is, again, this is where we're looking at numbers so we can make predictions, economic predictions about the cost that is associated with diseases. And this is where we're kind of going back to the global imperative of corralling in disease, okay? And then also dealing with these diseases of aging. Again, we see this creeps in at 40 and gets worse over time. People live to their 90. You can see that this is in terms of, say, costs through Medicare, which is paid by the government, which is going to be a drain on the economic well-being of a country. What's that economic well-being of the country? The gross domestic product, okay? It's their bank account. So if you have a lot of diabetics, you're going to have a lot of problems, okay? So this is, looking at, you can go in here, right here, and choose your region. What we did is we're looking at the cost of diabetes. This is the number of people that have diabetes, okay? 51 million people in North America, which is, basically mostly the United States and Canada. Okay, and there's some global findings right here, all right? So these are just, again, the number of people that have diabetes, okay? 3 or 4 adults with diabetes live in low and middle income countries. That's because they're not treated, they don't have the money, okay? Diabetes costs over almost $1,000 billion in healthcare expenditures. All right, and then this is honing in on, okay, we can look at North America right here, and there's the numbers right here, right? Awesome. That's out of your interest if you want to look at some of the global implications. Cool website though, all right? Okay, so heart disease, it doubles the risk, diabetes doubles the risk of having heart disease, meaning that you're gonna have a heart attack and die. Vascular disease, it causes stroke, okay? And quadruples the risk in women. There's reasons beyond that as to why women have a higher risk, okay? And it really has to do with the protective effects that estrogen have, and then what happens is women go through menopause, and then their risk skyrockets, okay? Alrighty, so it's a big deal, okay? What is it linked to? Heart attacks, stroke, peripheral artery disease, okay? This is where your legs can throw clots, and you have a heart attack and stroke, or your legs, the blood vessels don't really work right, and then you begin to have necrosis where you're gonna have to have amputations, okay? High blood pressure, high cholesterol, okay? There's a generalized lack of physical activity, okay, and associated with being overweight. So these are what you have to do. You have to do this to stop, okay? Stop the problem, all right? This is a really cool website right here that is put out by the Center for Disease Control, and it can look at, some of the numbers that we have that are prevailing in our country in terms of diabetes if you have an issue with this, okay? You can look into this and use this for your other reports, okay? Crazy, okay, how many people have diabetes. 38 million people of all ages, okay, have had diabetes. 38 million adults age 18 and older have had diabetes. Going through here, we can look at number of people that are diabetic. Again, like I said, this is the raw numbers have truly been diagnosed. This is the one that's scary. Okay, we can double that. Okay, we see almost 100 million people, and how does that play out? Okay, plays out kind of scary. It plays out, and then when we look at our country down here, we're looking at 40% of our country is expected to develop type 2 diabetes over a lifetime, and like I said, that numbers are going up to we see that 60% are pre-diabetic. All right. So this goes in. You can watch this video about how when you eat a meal and you elevate the sugar in your blood, the glucose, okay, you release insulin, so it shows it right here, the pancreas, then the insulin right here binds to the receptors, and then these special channels form that will suck the glucose out of the bloodstream. Okay, and this is where it goes wrong in the 90% of cases, which are type 2 diabetes. All right, if the sugar remains in the blood, okay, it causes the immune system to lose it. You get inflammation in the blood vessels. You get candy coating in the blood vessels. You get the blood vessels that are normal like this, they get atherosclerosis, okay, and the blood does not get delivered as well. And then you get all these serious complications that John here will walk you through. Great video, okay? These are the complications of having diabetes. The complications are, again, rooted in the problems that happen in the blood vessels from inflammation, okay? Candy coating of proteins causes the immune system to absolutely lose it and do things it's not supposed to do, okay? We have high levels of cholesterol that are associated with immune dysfunction and also associated with the cholesterol getting basically screwed up by high levels of blood glucose, okay? It gets oxidized and then everything falls apart, okay? So if you have problems in your eyes because of diabetes, you developed a condition called retinopathy. It's an increased risk for cataracts, glaucoma, all these eye problems, and you can lose your eyesight. Okay, you can have increased risk of stroke, and what do they call Alzheimer's disease? They call Alzheimer's disease type 3 diabetes. Why would we call it that? Okay, because it's the natural progression. Okay, if you have diabetes all your life and we fix your heart attack, okay, and we remove your necrotic feet because of the peripheral arteries disease, but we keep you alive, then you're most likely to get, you're the one that's most likely to get dementia. Okay, 80% of Alzheimer's patients are either diabetic or pre-diabetic. Alrighty, kidney failure from diabetes, and like I said, neuropathy, where you can no longer feel your feet, and so you're stumbling around, okay? And you can have abnormal pain. All right, so that is diabetes, you know, as simply as I can do it. It's a huge bummer, okay? And it's something that really has to be fixed through education and increased access, right? We can relate that back, of course, guys, to your discussion, all right? And that is right down here. So go to town with that, all right? Remember, okay, we have type 1 diabetes, okay, that's juvenile onset, and that's where the immune system from prior unfortunate viral infection, it attacks the pancreas and you don't produce insulin. We have gestational diabetes associated with obesity, but also what happens, it's part of pregnancy, and the hormones that get released in pregnancy. About 10% of women get it, okay? And we've talked about prevention strategies, and we have treatments. And one of the treatments that is newest, okay, is Ozempic, okay, and we've heard a lot about it. Risperidone, all these GLP-1 agonists. What these drugs do is, remember, the sugar comes in, it goes to your pancreas, and your pancreas releases insulin. Well, what naturally happens is before the sugar gets there, your GI cells release GLP-1, and it goes up to the pancreas, says, sugar's coming, and it triples, quadruples, tenfold increases the amount of insulin that released when the sugar hits the pancreas, okay? So makes perfect sense. So we can prime it now with, you know, Ozempic and increase the insulin release for somebody that is diabetic. So that was the whole basis of this. And that way, you know, more insulin, more signal to your muscle, brain, and liver to remove the glucose from the blood so it doesn't candy coat the blood vessels, okay? Ozempic also goes up to the brain and says, hey, dude, you just had a meal, it's time to slow your roll. And that's the whole weight loss process. Now that's normal. If I'm eating a Big Mac right now, as I'm eating it, my GI cells are going up to my brain saying, hey, guess what, man, you got your meal, don't keep eating. Go ahead, finish it, no more, okay? So now when you inject yourself with Trulicity or Risperidone or Wegovy or Ozempic, you don't even have a meal, right? All right? But it goes up to the brain and does the same thing as having meal. Because the brain says, okay, dude, slow your roll. You've had a meal, but you haven't. You just tricked it with Ozempic. All right, awesome. Just want to get that one in, guys. Peace. All right. We'll see you next week.